The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker and my colleagues, it's been quite a year. This House has been on a spending spree and a regulatory spree and a bailout spree that I could never have imagined in any of my prior 18 years here in Congress. You know, it was a $1 trillion spending plan, stimulus plan. It was supposed to be about creating jobs and turned into nothing more than a lot of big government spending. A budget that had $1 trillion deficits on average for as far as the eye can see. A $1 trillion national energy tax. It was going to create this giant bureaucracy and tax Americans over their gasoline, their electricity, and everything else that moves in America. Then we had the nearly $1 trillion government takeover of our health care system. And people wonder why employers are frozen, why they're not hiring more employees when all of this is coming down the pike. And if all that wasn't bad enough, we have no idea what's going to happen to tax rates. There have been suggestions to increase taxes in many of the bills that have passed this House this year. And now we come to the granddaddy of all of them, the financial regulatory bill that's in front of us today. All of us recognize there are shortcomings in our financial regulatory system. But I do believe that the overreach by my Democrat colleagues on this bill is really beyond imagination. It's going to have more bailouts for banks in this bill. Nothing that will reform Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the real culprits at the beginning of this whole financial meltdown. But there's no reform in this bill when it comes to those two entities. And if all that isn't bad enough to put more money in here to bail out bad actors, it's exactly what the American people don't want. And so I rise in support of a common sense regulatory approach offered by my Republican colleagues. And I want to congratulate Spencer Baucus and all the members of his committee for the work that they've done to put this common sense alternative together. That'll fix the regulatory gaps that we have without bailouts, without tens of thousands of new federal employees that we see in the underlying bill. And I would hope that my colleagues would support it. But if my colleagues don't support the alternative that's on the floor at this moment, when that vote comes, Republicans will offer a motion to recommit. A motion to recommit that will scrap the entire underlying bill. It will also say TARP ends on December 31st this year. And all of the funds that come back from TARP should be used to repay the federal deficit. And thirdly, we will bring down the debt limit commensurate with those repayments. TARP was there for an emergency. Everyone involved in TARP over a year ago understood that when that money came back, it was to go back to the Treasury to reduce the federal budget deficit. It wasn't to become a political slush fund that we've heard bandied about here over the last couple of weeks. All kinds of ideas about how to take TARP and use it for more bailouts and more spending from here in Washington. And so I want to ask my colleagues, if you've had enough of the bailouts, if you've had enough of TARP, let's do the right thing for the American people. They're already saying enough is enough. Let's end TARP. Let's pay down the deficit. And if this substitute doesn't pass, you'll have a chance to put an end to this entire process. I yield back.